Welcome to the meeting of the Open Space Committee, December the 4th, 2014. We have two main items on the agenda today. One is a conversation with Jamie Bartak of PVPC, which is going to be in reference to the Pioneer Valley Compact for Conservation, which has some limited funds that we hope to tap into, and so we're going to have a conversation with Jamie. And the second main item on the agenda is that Martha Lyon is going to give a final report, which is the report on the refurbishing of the park next to Town Hall, which she has been working, we've been working with her over the last 3 or 4 months. So first of all, Jamie, I'd like to introduce you to our larger audience, and to just ask you to give us a short kind of, I was going to say discourse, it's a little too heavy for that, but at least, right, telling us the kind of thing that you might be useful to the committee for, and so on.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
And it's nice to meet you all. The Compact for Conservation was started a few years ago at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to provide local communities with technical assistance related to conservation and open space protection, agricultural land protection, and the like, or recreational needs as well. This year we have 3 other members. We have Southampton, Winding River Land Conservancy, Hatfield, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the last one, but we have one more. And we can provide a wider range of services ranging from conservation monitoring restrictions, monitoring conservation restrictions, kiosks, signage design, also inventory and conservation lands, grantsmanship, various kind of a wider range of activities. It's really based on what you need the most. And I would view me as a resource to maybe work on things that you just need to get done. It's pressing, it's important, but you just might not always have the time or the resources to take care of it. So I do have a list of our services, which you may have already received in the past. So I hopefully have enough. And
Yeah, I've got one.
you got one. So, as I mentioned, we could work on land protection projects. For instance, if there's a specific parcel that is perhaps, maybe going to change hands and you'd like to see about ways that we could protect it. We can do anything from like researching different strategies to actually implementing a strategy that you already have decided on, perhaps. There's open space stewardship, so perhaps a land stewardship plan, for instance, on a parcel. Who's going to manage it? How is it going to be monitored and managed over the years? We also have conservation restriction monitoring, like I mentioned. Wetlands delineation, we have done that in the past. I will say that my expertise is not in that specific area right now, so if that's something you needed, I might have to poll my colleagues to see who else might be able to do that. I do know that we have one person that has that experience, but it wouldn't be me. So it's not just me. That's a good point to make. We do have a lot of resources at PVPC with different experiences. And also brochure, kiosk, signage design. I think that was something that was mentioned in the past in terms of priority projects. I know that Hatfield's been a member of the compact before. And, like it says, just looking at different, planning activities, things like that. So that's just the general synopsis. So really, I've looked quickly at your 5-year action plan from your open space and recreation plan, and then also just looking at the scope of work back from 2012. I have about 20 hours. We have about 20 hours we can work with that shifts depending on who's doing the work with PVPC, depending on the skills that you need. But just kind of keep in mind general 20 hours. So I'm not sure how you'd like to do it. If people have projects in mind that they'd just like to discuss, or if you'd like to go through your action plan, I'm open to however you'd like to proceed. Or I can go through your old scope of work and we can see like what still remains to be done.
Mhm.
Would you like to do that, or?
Grant, I mean,
Yes,
I think
they
we never have enough awareness of what grants are coming up
Okay,
in terms of things that we might be looking at. We just designed a trail, and we did that through the compact with Conservation Works.
Yeah.
I don't see that on your technical assistance, or is it kind of embedded somewhere? Would you be able to help with trail design if we,
That was on your thing.
was it?
yeah,
Trail mapping.
trail mapping.
Trail mapping, okay.
Trail design, I'd have to check, there might be one person that could do that specifically, but probably if you're looking for, I think we'd be of more assistance if you were looking for like grants,
Grants, yeah.
like to implement
be
that
great.
design. So I know that like the recreational trails program, I think the deadline is coming up in like February, for instance, so that might be something that just comes off the top of my head. So
Okay.
if you would like us to research different things that this might be appropriate for in terms of grants.
Giving us the heads up, since we're a volunteer committee, we do need a lot of lead time in order to
Yeah,
put things together.
yep,
So ideally, to know when periodic grants come up, like 4 to 6 months, I don't know if it's even possible to know that kind of thing.
for some grants it is, because they come up every year, but
Right.
there are other ones. But it might be useful to have, I could compile, like, if this is what you wanted, like a document where there's organizations where there have been past grants, and, you know, we can keep an eye on it and things like that.
Yeah, it's like
So-
grant deadlines, I mean, a lot of them are in June maybe, or July, do I
Land
think?
grant,
Yeah,
and the park grant, yeah, are in
yeah.
June, I think, but you have to get started on them fairly early.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
So having the heads up to
Mhm.
know that, usually we find out if a grant's too late with, 6 weeks remaining before the deadline, and we just can't pull it together.
Totally understand.
The other part of tonight's meeting would be this presentation by Martha Lyons of Northampton. And it's a redesign of the park right outside here, right? And I had a conversation with the grants person at the park program, and I think it seemed like it was pretty straightforward that this project would not qualify for the simple fact that the town actually doesn't own that land.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's, maybe this is we can follow up with this, whether there's any other possible state funding, given the situation of that.
Who owns the land?
The trustees
Trustees.
of Smith Academy, which is a nonprofit.
Okay,
It was a school that was knocked down.
right.
So it used to be owned by the town, right? I mean, the property?
No, I
was-
don't know.
It's a
way back
public-
when.
Couldn't find a title chain. I tried.
Oh, really?
I'm looking forward to seeing the design so I can finish the survey that I'm doing for the town.
It's unusual
That's another
because
thing
it's a
we could
public
talk to
house.
Ms. Lyons about.
And it's gonna remain under the trustees?
With the plan is now to be a long-term lease to the town, so the trustees would not have any responsibility.
Okay. Okay, that's another option.
Yeah, I mean, we probably would go for CPA funding, but we don't know actually what the cost is going to be and how much is available, so to have other options is always,
Right. Okay. So what I'm hearing so far is kind of research on, you have great projects, you just need to know how to get them to the next step with funding. So that's one option that
Yeah.
I could spend my time on, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. There's some other things I saw from your last, you mentioned a kiosk, for instance. I think that was on here too, from
Right.
last time.
We had talked about this when we were building the trail, was actually having, as you described it, I think, as an informational kiosk. Um, And
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that.
Yep.
that we-
Whether it's a kiosk or a sign, I guess,
Right.
or some combination thereof. I mean, having a map on it
Yeah.
would be nice, and that's something,
Mhm.
you're really great at that,
Yeah,
at some of the
we can
mapping.
do that. We have GPS, so someone can go out and take little points and make a map out of it, and if there's interpretive information you want on that. Obviously, I don't think the funding would allow for the building of the sign, but that's something I could
Right, right.
put as a part of the project is, here's potential costs and estimates and stuff like that, so you'd know what you could take it to the next step. Yeah.
Great.
We see them at other towns, you know, like I think the Amherst Nature Trails.
Mm-hmm.
There's one in Northampton, just up from the,
Yeah, they have lots of different ideas about kiosk. I guess we were wondering about vandalism and what type of thing to design that wouldn't be subject to vandalism
Yeah,
as much.
thick plexiglass or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Or doesn't invite kind of vandalism, you know,
Right. Okay,
so.
all right, so that's, is that something, I guess do we want to keep going through the list, or do you have other ideas, or?
I have a question, but I don't know if I can, like, open it up to the public, because I'm here as chairman of the Conservation Commission.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past, when Ann was in your position, we used your organization as a third-party review
Mm-hmm.
for conservation issues that
Mhm.
come up in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still available?
Yes, there is someone, and again, I'm still acquiring a lot of that more technical stuff, but there is
Mhm.
someone who's on the Conservation Commission in Bernston
Mhm.
in our building, so he has a lot of that background too, so he could assist with that for
Mhm.
certain, yeah.
And there are other PVC grants, aren't there? Aren't there technical assistant grants or something like that that occur yearly or periodically
From PVPC?
through PVPC?
Oh, yes, DLTA funding.
Okay.
Right, yep, that's also something
What's
that.
that stand for?
District
Local
local
technical
technical assistance
assistance.
grants.
Okay.
Yep, and so there are certain categories it has to fall under, but if there's, I could look through this and, go back and see if maybe something on here might qualify for
Or as Ron was talking about, I don't know whether that would, some of the conscom stuff would fall under that as well or not.
I'm not sure if it would depend on what it is.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be one of these services offered. You know,
Yeah.
it's basically a third-party review when we can't come to a, not a decision, but an understanding of the
Mhm.
project.
Yeah, I'd have to look at that, I'm not sure if that would qualify for DLTA, it depends on the project, it has to follow under these 3 different categories, but there might be some things on here that could possibly, and I know we do have funding available still, so.
Okay.
yeah.
So, Ron, when you talk about third, I don't know, I'm not familiar with this language, but this third-party review is getting someone in from the outside to do something which the commission doesn't have the expertise to do
I
necessarily?
guess you could say that maybe an independent party to like flag some wetlands that some
Okay.
consultant would have flagged.
Mhm.
Or to go out
Yep.
there and, you know, agree with the flags that a
Right.
consultant would
Okay.
flag.
Yep.
But also, you know, a real, you know, intense project has things like drainage calculations to see just how a project would affect the wetlands based
Okay.
on drainage calculations.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's hard for the layperson to understand. When Paul Davis was Conservation Commission chairman, he knew all about drainage calculations, so we
Yeah.
could just follow what he thought. So many times that would be a good third-party
Yep.
review reason
We can do
to
that.
review a consultant's drainage
Yeah,
calculations.
yeah, okay.
Okay. Right.
For land preservation, I'm wondering, you know, sometimes there's tax incentives and things like that for landowners to take certain actions, either donating
Mhm.
or, you know, selling development rights or things like that, considering conservation restrictions. For them to know the tax advantages or what the advantages would be,
Mhm.
is that something that is within your scope?
Yeah, it sounds like outreach.
Yeah.
That's definitely within our scope too, and as you were talking, I'm wondering if a bigger project, I'd have to look, I don't wanna make any promises, that might be DLTA possibly worthy.
Oh, okay,
So
all
I'll
right.
take a look at that. So, are there specific areas in town that you have in mind, or just?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
definitely. I mean, there's some watershed areas for the reservoir
Mhm.
that still need to be looked at
Okay,
for preservation,
okay,
to kind of complete the whole area surrounding the reservoir for
Right.
protection, so.
just definitely the more targeted
Right,
under this would be better.
yes, definitely.
Yeah, okay. Anything else? I'm looking at the last one, a map of the watershed area for the kiosk. Let's see, trail element design, farmland preservation on the South Street area and North Main Street areas, landowner contacts, negotiations that also,
Yeah,
Still
yeah,
need to be
that's, yeah,
yep.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see, opportunities for Connecticut River waterfront land preservation and access as part of the greenway system, is that still?
yeah, those are pretty limited things, but yeah, and I think Mill River access as well is something we've been working on for a long time, to try to get above the dam,
Yeah.
public access, kayaking type of access,
And that's become, or may become, something that's, that we really want to do something about very quickly, because there's some talk about refurbishing the bridge across there and creating, some people talk about it as creating a kind of bridge of flowers or something like that, but a whole pedestrian area and whatnot there. So I think, there's something in the air.
Okay. All right. Great. So, would you like me to put together, based on what I've heard tonight, like a list of what I could do in the context of the hours that we have and the
That's
expertise
exactly what
we
I was
have?
going to ask you, yeah.
And then you all could decide on what you'd like to proceed with this year?
yeah.
I think that would be perfect. That would really suit as far as I'm concerned, I think it would suit us very well.
Okay, I might need to follow up with some questions to get a little more info about the various different things that came
Yeah.
up, but
Yeah.
I can definitely do that within the week.
And is there a way to leverage your time somehow with other, I know, I don't know if Conservation Works would pick up a few hours where you guys didn't feel like you could finish it under your, or, I don't know if there's a way to
Yeah,
leverage something.
in the past, we were working with a CIC grant that did allow us to do that. That CIC grant, or CIC funding is now completely eliminated from the budget of the
Okay.
state. But, let me talk to my supervisor, Chris Curtis, because he does know in the past how that has been done. There
Okay.
might be, maybe again with DLTA or something else that I could look into. So that I would have more time or return to Conservation Works.
Right. And the Conservation Commission has approved us granting sometimes money from the Conservation Fund that they have, which is an established fund to do certain specific projects. So it's possible to leverage a project a little bit more. We also have access to a conservation fund established at town meeting a few years ago for specific, it's really targeted for project targeted. It's a CPC fund,
Okay,
Community Preservation Committee fund,
yeah,
which has strict guidelines as to how it can be used, but it could possibly go along with something you could do, and then we could pick up and finish a certain project if the 20 hours didn't make it,
Right. Right, okay. Could I follow up on information about that too, just to know what the guidelines are? so we
Right,
can get a better
sure.
idea?
Yeah.
I can send you the guidelines as to what they are.
Okay,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Okay, so does that sound good as a next step then? I could outline the options and?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
It does,
20 hours goes fast, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, c'est la vie.
yeah, right, right.
All right.
All right, well, thank you, I'm sorry
Yeah.
to.
No.
That's all right. No.
All right, it
Thanks-
was nice to
thanks
meet
for
you all.
coming.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to working with
Do
you.
you have contact information in case we need a third-party review? You mentioned someone,
You know,
and Ann actually had someone in mind too, environmental science and stuff in the Shelburne Falls area.
okay. You know what, I have to replenish my business card since I've been out, but here's my card.
Okay,
And then if you need any information, I can dig up what I gotta dig up.
I have two here.
Okay.
Oh, you have two? Okay,
Nolan, Mark?
great. Okay. Any other questions before I go?
Not for
Okay,
me.
great.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for coming, Jamie.
Yeah,
That's
thank
great.
you.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. That's good.
You're not,
Take
you're not,
care,
you're not,
Jamie.
you're not
Yeah, it's only
wired.
Martha is going to be the audience as well. Do you want to come up here, Martha? Yeah.
when you get home tonight, ignore the message on your home machine, because we almost didn't think we had a quorum, but after I made the call about 5 minutes later, we got a quorum, so.
So we just don't have an audience. Yeah, right?
Yeah, we'll give might want to wait just a couple of minutes.
Yeah,
Take a break and then we can get hooked up with an easel and everything.
okay, fine.
Because
All right.
Well, do you want an easel for the
So we're-
filming?
yeah, so we can-
Okay, because I don't need one for you guys, but, okay, that's.
I'm hoping at least we get a couple of trustees, but we'll see.
To the December 4th meeting of the Open Space Committee, and the second part of this meeting is one that is going to hear a report from Martha Lyon, who has been doing a plan for the park, which is the trustees' park, which is next to Town Hall. So Martha, without further ado.
Okay. Well, we met last, I shouldn't say, I attended a meeting early in the fall, where we heard some public comment on the plans that I had presented in July. And it seemed, from all of the commentary that we got, people were pretty much in favor of the first scheme. And if people don't remember the 3 schemes, that's not important at this point, because we've moved past the 3 options. And we're focusing on the first scheme that we had talked about in July and then again in the fall. So what I have done since I saw you last is I've been able to revise the first scheme based on the comments that we received since it was first presented, and I think address most of what was asked for. And then I've also come up with a very preliminary budget proposal, or budget projection, I guess I would call it, to give you an idea of what things cost and what we're dealing with in terms of scope of budget. So I wanted to talk with you about that tonight. And Rich had asked me earlier in the week about the gazebo pavilion structure and whether I would be able to give you any kind of idea about cost of that. And I was able to do a little bit of research on that, mostly from manufacturers of these products. There are companies out there that make these things. They make stock items, they also make custom items, but I think that's sort of a good starting point for us to give an idea of what the sort of market asks for these kinds of things. So I think what I'll do is, why don't I just talk you through the plan and show you what the changes are, and then I've got copies of everybody that I can pass around. Can everybody see this?
No, actually, if you pass me one of those copies, that'd be fine. I can look
Okay,
off that.
so yeah, this is like being on, television.
Vanna White.
That's it.
It is looking on television. So, this is for the camera. You want me to turn you a little bit?
That's fine.
Okay. Forget about this.
Come up here if you want.
So as you
You guys
remember, I will just give you one of those. Sure. I would just give you a little summary of where we were before. The scheme that was selected took the pavilion and placed it in the center of the park. And originally, I had that kind of centered in the middle of the park itself. And you had asked me to try to pull that back towards the west a little bit so that we could open up the lawn on the east side of it. This would be the east side here. And so I did a lot of looking at the town hall and figuring out what I thought would be the best position of that. You don't want to just plop it out there and kind of do it casually. I think it needs to be coordinated with the symmetry, the geometry of the town hall building itself. So where it's now located is essentially in line with the center of the, what's, I guess, the middle portion, and we're in that portion right now, I believe. Where the, is it where the gym used to be for the academy?
Right,
Yeah. So it's in there. So there are 5 tall windows that go across the upper floor, and this is online with the center of the upper floor window. And what I have here is just a very simple 25 by 25 foot pavilion. That the shape of that, as we all know, is still under discussion. But what I've also done with this is to increase the surface around it. You had asked that it not just be a narrow walkway going around it, but it be a little bit wider so that we could have some gatherings of people there. So this is widened to 8 feet. Now I'm trying to be conservative about the amount of paving that we put in here, because it is a green space, and we want to try to, preserve as much of that as we can. So I think 8 feet around it is going to be a generous amount of space. The walkways are essentially in the same configuration that were on the original concept. But as you can see, we have a much larger lawn on the east side. And so the symmetry has thrown a little bit off, but I think that's fine. I think it works really well. And it still does reflect that old pattern that was on the site when the school was here, which I think is really nice. I'm really glad you chose that. So a couple of other things about this. I've incorporated into the bandstand structure area the plaque that was on the front of the building, the marble plaque that was on the front of the building that's out there now. That plaque is about 36 inches high. And I think that one of the things that would be really nice with this, and if you like this idea, I'll do a couple of cross sections for my kind of final, so you understand it from a sort of a cross section point of view, is that that get basically placed on the east side of the bandstand or gazebo in a slope. So the bandstand then would be slightly elevated. So if you're coming up the walkway from either side on Main Street, you would start going up towards the bandstand. So it would sit about 30 inches higher than, say, at the street level. That seems maybe like a lot because it's at the height of this chair, but I think from way back on the street, it's going to be really imperceptible. I did a quick cross-section for myself today just to look at that, and I think it won't look like it's sitting up on top of a pimple or anything like that.
Sorry, what was the height you said?
The frieze, or the freestone, the plaque is 36 inches high.
Okay.
So it could sit against the side of that platform area, and then the ground would just slope down gently on either side of it. So there would be a little bit of a bowl shape to the lawn in front of the bandstand. But again, I think we're talking about such a small amount of grade that it's not going to look that dramatic. One of the options too would be to incorporate some of that ashlar stone that is on either side of the plaque now that's holding up the walls in that. So we could possibly incorporate that. That's a detail that we'll get into in the next round. We're just trying to get the concept here. Okay, so the other thing too, I thought long and hard about the tree plantings here. And on the north side, we have the row of pear, and we also have a row of ashes. And the ashes are not doing well, and the pear are quite mature. And I really, after a lot of thought, think that those probably do need to come out. We're eliminating the lindens that are on the south side because they're blocking those views into the park. And I think on the north side it would be nice to have a row of really hardy, tall shade trees there that have a very tall canopy that allow a view in, but then frame that edge, kind of to match the building on the other side, on the south side of the park, which is also framing the edge of the park. I've added some more trees kind of towards the west, which you had asked for, to provide shade, especially in the evenings or late afternoons. And then the screen of evergreens along the parking lot. There was some discussion about having some openings in those trees, kind of to allow people to come in. And I feel pretty strongly that that should be a continuous screen. And the reason for that is I think that you'll get a lot of people crossing in and wearing down the turf there. But we can have a discussion about that. Again, that's a detail we can work out. Along the town hall, there was a lot of discussion about planting there, and I do think it's important because it is barren now, but it's also a quite beautiful facade of the building. So what I've done here is along the auditorium section, these would be more columnar-shaped trees that are taller and leaner, that wouldn't mask the whole building. And then anchored on the corners by some slightly taller trees. And I think that will give you a nice, again, edge and setting for that area. And then I've included benches along the pathway, because I think people love to look at seating. The boulders that are out there, the commemorative boulders, I think that the existing boulder that's down at the corner of Main and School can pretty much stay where it is. We might have to shift that a little bit to get it into that entry kind of pocket park area. And then the second boulder, which is now in the little park out here, inside the park, I think can also stay kind of where it is. Again, we're probably gonna have to shift that a little bit just to get it nudged into that Y in the walkway. So we're not talking about transporting these things long distances, which is a good thing. And also with the veterans boulders, we're moving those, we're shifting those as well, but they're staying in the same general area.
What's the second boulder you talked about?
Um,
Commemorative boulder?
There is the boulder that commemorates the school itself, and then there's also a boulder, I think that was a gift from one of the
Some
classes.
class.
Yeah, 1906 or something, yeah. So they're approximately in the location that they are now. Let's see, what else about it? The only other element that I did not include in here, and I think it was partly because I wasn't sure that there was unanimous support for it, and also I'm a little concerned about price, is the water feature. So if that's something that we want to discuss, I think there are a couple good locations for that, and it could be added. So what I'd like to do is to just sort of get your comments about this, and then I have a preliminary budget that we can look at to give you an idea about how much things cost, very roughly, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I'm going to sit down now.
So the question I had has to do with sort of the view from the front, looking into the pavilion, where you have the bushes now. So are you saying that the elevation would be such that you would, if there was a small bushes there or that plaque, that you would just still be seeing, right into the,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, you definitely would. It's the low plantings that I have are just sort of anchoring that, they're anchoring the stone itself or the plaque itself. So they wouldn't be any higher than the plaque, and they would essentially be below the walkway. So they'd
Okay.
be kind of along the slope below the walkway. And again, I think you do need to see a cross-section of this to understand it if you like the concept.
And that's where you're referring, you could also potentially take the stones that are out there now, whatever they are, Goshen stones or whatever,
Yeah.
and
right,
create a
Yeah,
wall
we
there
could-
instead of the bushes,
Yes,
perhaps.
we could, exactly. We
Yeah.
could just, rebuild that into that slope. And it actually might be nice, it might be a nice thing,
Right.
a nice feature.
And along the town hall, are those low bushes, right?
They are not. Those would be, the windows are spaced, I think, I don't have the measurements in front of me. I think the windows are spaced maybe 6 feet apart, so they would rest between the windows.
Okay.
So you're not blocking the light.
Usually some of the more columnar trees that
Yeah, I think there was some talk about having something sort of open and lacy, and I do like that idea as well, but I think that you don't want to mask those windows necessarily, because they are quite beautiful, and this would sort of follow the rhythm of the windows. So, Mark, did you have something?
Yeah, we have two windows of those windows right here in the room. So
We do,
you can
in
see, yeah, the spacing of them are,
Is it about 6 feet?
I'd say more
More?
like 10, yeah.
Okay.
But, so you're thinking of putting something between those?
Between, yeah.
Okay.
You're talking these windows or the basement windows?
Well, they're aligned with one another.
Okay.
So,
And those would be deciduous, you're thinking, or?
yes.
Okay.
But again, this is all open for discussion, so.
Mhm. And the intermediate trees in and around the pavilion, those
Mhm.
are they indeed an intermediate-sized tree, or would they be like a full-grown maple, or what would
Well,
they
that
be?
would be the idea, is to have a tall shade tree. I mean,
Okay.
you're not going to want to bring in a tall shade tree now. You do have one that's existing, which is the one, if you're looking at this plan, that's just to the left front
Mhm.
of the bandstand or the
Right.
pavilion. And that's a pretty significant
Oh, I
tree.
see.
Yeah, so we're keeping that, and then we'll add some more just to, again, provide more shade in that area long term.
On the west of the parking lot, that's the border evergreens? Then-
Yes.
Then the ones going towards the east, the 1, 2, 3, 4, behind the bandstand, those are, gonna be shade trees?
Yes.
Okay.
And the gazebo, we talked before about that, so it's a gradual rise, so it's handicap accessible.
Yeah.
And you can walk right through it, we say open
That's the idea. I think that would be really nice. I mean, I know there's been some discussion about something with sides on it, and all of these things are available. But I know that there's a lot of interest in having some transparency and openness, and so we can go either way.
If you have open, if you happen to have a large crowd, you could sit on all, four sides and still see
Right.
the same thing.
Yes, exactly. That's one of the advantages of a pavilion like that. Although some of the ones that I've seen, just looking, online, they're kind of, they remind me of the recreation parks I grew up with as a kid in Western New York. So they don't quite suit the area, I don't think, so.
It's more of a recreational camp sort of feel
Yeah.
rather than a Victorian or any other era
Right.
Gazebo.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I remember looking online at some with, huge amount of gazebos.
Yeah, they're,
Yeah.
yes.
They
something
look a little more like, whatever, pedestrian sort of covered, I don't know, something you see on a golf course,
Mhm.
For rain shelter kind of thing,
Yep.
something like that.
Yeah, a picnic pavilion at a public park or something like that, yeah.
I mean, it just probably really depends on the motifs, the materials used to.
Right, and
Give it-
I don't know if you remember, when I gave the presentation in July, I had showed a whole bunch of different models, and there was one, I think, Rich, you had remarked on it. It's in Groveland, Massachusetts, and it sits on a common there, and it kind of has a chapel-like look to it, but it's completely open, and you can see right through it. I think it has a little cupola on top of it, almost like a steeple, but it's not a steeple. And it's really charming, and it fits right in with the town, but it's also a pavilion, so.
Because it seems to me the design, whatever design we have would be more on the top, the roof, and that the pillars would just be pillars. I'm not sure how much you could do with those, but that you could have a nice design on top and, mimic some of the other buildings in town or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I've seen them where they have the columns, the piers that the structure sits on are made out of stone. That could be really
Okay, yeah.
nice. But I agree, I mean, it's the top, the roof, I think has to be really, and also the detail on the roof line, I think also has to be thought of really carefully, because that's what you'll see from the street.
One of the selectmen brought up about using the cupola from the center school.
Yeah, I brought that up too.
Since it is coming down now.
I know.
Perhaps that would fit the town hall better.
It's,
It's
yeah,
huge.
I'm sure it's
Absolutely
huge. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not as big as the gazebo. I mean, it's probably, 15 feet maybe across? So we need some
I just wonder what it's constructed out, I mean,
I
it
know
must
it's
be
co-
very
it's
heavy.
copper, the roof is
copper roof,
copper,
yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice to have it. I suppose you could build another little structure underneath it
Yeah.
and,
If the
Set it
scale
on there.
worked, it would be great.
yeah.
It would be
yeah.
really great.
Or place the one from the central school on the town hall and then make a smaller to scale one for the gazebo, sort of continuity and sort of pairing.
You have one on the town hall now.
Oh, we
There's
do.
one,
we do.
yeah,
Oh,
it's about the
that's
end of
right.
it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
but I think that's a great idea. If it could be done, it'd be really wonderful to preserve that, because it's,
Mm,
way.
yeah.
We haven't talked about lighting too much in this whole process.
No.
And
And again, that's something that would get worked out in the design development phase after we're done with this phase of the project, but
Yeah.
I think it's something to certainly consider.
Can I ask about the evergreens on the west side, I guess? And I have different visions of what that might be. Did you have a particular, is it more like a hedge, are you thinking, or is
No.
it? No.
Not a hedge. This would be kind of a massing, that sounds extreme, but it would be just a planting, not an even row, but kind of a staggered row, I guess,
Mhm.
of evergreens, and I would use more than one species, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Would they mask the cars in the parking lot?
That's kind of the idea. Is that a
Yeah,
bad
is
thing?
yeah, no, I mean, that's a good
Because of the
thing.
headlights and, yeah.
Yeah.
No, because now the bandstand is, back towards the parking lot, so at night, you're having performances, and if there's nothing there to screen those cars, people are gonna be coming in and out, and their headlights will be shining, and that's a great.
I think that if we lopped off 2 of the trees on either end or something like that, that wouldn't make a big impact, but yet it would still open it up perhaps looking, looking out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my only concern, is really having a visual connection to other parts of the whole town center there, the new playground that's been built, the new basketball court. Just some connections, just visual connections. I know the headlights might be an issue. Probably if most events occur in the summertime, I don't know how much headlights are going to be an issue in terms of whether it's dark by the time events are occurring or not. But just how dense that is, and whether those are, spruce, or what kind of a backdrop that makes, and what kind of a landscape that creates, would be
How about if
good to
you're taking
know.
a parking spot? Like, I don't know if these parking spots are drawn to scale, but it seems like if you line up the edge of the 5th spot, it kind of centers on the gazebo.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility of just having an opening somewhere, or,
Like a narrow walkway and one spot eliminated, so somebody couldn't park in that spot and shine down the walkway. It would open up slightly to the parks and to the back of the parcel. And I
like the
don't know
way
if
that people carve their own paths in parks, it's like,
that would
somebody's
be-
going to want to get through there, and by hook or by crook, it's probably going to happen, so unless you feel, what's your experience, Martha, with not letting people come in from at all, except these 2 distant corners or something?
Well, they're not that far.
No, I guess they're not.
No, they're
But-
really not.
Okay.
One thing, we could also, yeah, they're not that far. I don't want to go anymore, say anymore.
Those spots are Capewalk spots too, right? So that would open up another issue as to
I don't know.
eliminating a parking spot.
Are they?
Well, they
Capital?
park there during snowstorms, so you have to clear out from Capitol One.
They're not Capewalk, the town puts up illegal handicap parking signs every fall, and they take them down in the spring, and that's where they park.
So is that why because I was there the other day and I noticed there were, like, every space was a handicap space?
Yeah.
Okay.
They put those in.
And there's no loading next to any of them?
No,
Right.
it's just to keep people out of them so they can park, so they can do snow removal over
I
at
see.
the housing. Yeah.
Are you also doing new sidewalks around the front of the town hall and approaching the town hall?
Yeah, I planned for that in the preliminary budget, but again, this is all things that we can sort of take out or modify if we
I
need
noticed the other day
to.
coming in here that the front part is in pretty bad shape.
Mm-hmm,
So it'd
Yeah.
probably be nice if you could do that when you're doing the park.
and there are 2 different materials too. The walkway leading to the town hall is concrete, and the rest of the walkways around the park are asphalt, bituminous, so it'd be nice to have one material.
You left a boulder on a corner down here, and it appears you're putting a bench next to the boulder,
Yes,
and the tree's staying there. And Bob Shea was saying that every winter, the town plows snow in that section, covering the boulder and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, maybe we could speak to the selectmen about changing the way they plow, or it would be too bad to do all this work here and still throw snow on top of it,
where's the snow coming from? Is it the street?
They take the loader and they clear the intersection, so they dump it all in the park.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
well,
that's what they do. Yeah.
so that might be, maybe across the street where the center school is gonna be, or was, would be a
Well,
better
maybe if
place
you
to
have a
put
new
the snow.
sidewalk, they won't do that.
Yeah.
We would hope,
Yeah.
and a bench, and it's probably not so good for the sycamore either, so.
So you had mentioned the walkway, and I believe you told me before that you can get this bituminous, is that the, in sort of
Asphalt.
different colors and stuff like that? So it really doesn't look necessarily like, you know,
Right, yeah, so one of the big expenses on this project is gonna be the walkways themselves, because there's quite a bit of square footage. And I think it really all depends on, you know, how much money the town is willing to invest in it. And the material costs can vary widely. You know,
Yeah.
if we use stone dust, it's pretty cheap. Bituminous is a little bit, is more, and then you go on up from, you know, concrete and then pavers and asphalt pavers. Those are all, you know, more expensive. One of the things, so when I was pricing this, I priced the walkways as asphalt. One of the things that is nice to do is, if you don't want to spend the money to put in a really, really nice paving material throughout, you could pick one area to use a nice paving material, and that would be around the bandstand. If that would be a really nice place to put the asphalt pavers. And you could do a different color. So,
so the walkway itself would be that sort of tar color, the basic blackish color?
that's what we're thinking, that's what I'm thinking now, but again, we can talk about it, we look at numbers.
So I guess I was confusing with what the asphalt pavers are the ones that you could get different
They
varieties.
come in different colors,
Okay.
yeah, lots of different colors.
Are you planning to do the sidewalks over on Main Street and School Street? Is that
Again,
part of it,
I
or-
did include that in the budget,
You did?
I did. Again, it's something that, you know, could get removed, could be done later, so,
It would look a lot nicer if you did everything at once and
Yeah.
had all the same material, and
I agree.
so I assume that cement sidewalks through the park is not feasible,
Well, it certainly can be done, they can be,
but cost-wise.
it's just, it's a cost issue,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so.
As we know on Main Street from history, that it's really not the cost of the material on top, it's the excavation to make it, so it doesn't move.
Right, the base, yeah.
And we learned that through the elementary school project.
Did the walks fail there?
Yeah.
Oh. That's not good.
Go down 4 feet and you,
I was on
You're
the,
safe.
I was on the building committee for the sidewalks, for the elementary school, and the sidewalks was a long process of redoing them, redoing all
What
of them.
material are they?
They were concrete, and they had a 6 to 12-inch gravel base,
Mhm.
and it totally was insufficient.
Was it, is it like a high water table there? Is that-
Yeah, there was
yeah.
a lot of, there were a lot of reasons, but yeah, it was a wet site. I'm not sure whether the conditions are the same here, Jonathan, you know, as they are.
oh,
It's
you had
definitely,
clay base all around the river bed here, yeah, down.
right,
The
whether
only
it's,
thing with pavers is you've got a little more freedom because they'll move, you know.
Yeah, and the pavers in the park now, which they don't look great, they aren't failing from a heaving
right,
point
it
of view.
doesn't, so
Yeah,
it
this
could be
is-
that this is a better site than the,
That would
but I
be
think
good.
it'd be good to investigate what the, you know, what the depth
There's
of
a lot of cut
the
and fill
material.
over there too, you know, from the old school and foundation and
Would,
you can hit different areas all around there, you know.
do you think that foundation is all cleared out? I mean, would we run into stuff when we're doing walkways, we go down?
Well, that's a plus if you hit a foundation, so you know, you got solid ground.
Structural fill. Yeah.
I don't know what's under there.
Yeah.
Who knows what they buried?
Would pillars to a pavilion, would they be sitting on the apron here, or do they actually go into the ground typically? They would have to have a,
It would sit on a foundation that would be at least 4 feet below.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there'd be a footing underneath them.
so if we run into something, that's the likely spot we'd be running into,
Yeah,
old debris and stuff.
yeah.
Well, the old Smith Academy had a full basement?
No, no basement, it was on slab.
It was?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Wow, that's amazing.
I don't know, on slab, they had a foundation for the,
There was a perimeter foundation,
perimeter, but,
stone,
I mean,
yeah.
there was no basement in that place.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, that's interesting. Does the center school have a basement?
It does, yes. And it's pretty damp.
Okay, So, yeah.
So it could be a, it could be a I don't know about the basement of this space, as to how damp it gets.
There's no problem with moisture coming through the tiles and
Yeah.
dehumidifiers.
Right, right, yeah.
More than any other basement from 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Any comments?
That's great.
Can we pass on to the cost?
Yes, so I'm assuming from your comments that this feels like it captures what the concerns were, and it's the direction that you're feeling like we want to
Yeah.
pursue. Okay, good. So you can pass these around. So just while those are going around, when I do cost or budget projections at the conceptual level, these are very conservative pricing, so I try to err on the expensive side. Just it's always easier to work back from a big number than to work past a big number or a number. So these are based on, projects that I've worked on within the past year or two, prices adjusted for inflation if necessary. And you'll see in this, again, the cost of the paving is quite a bit. And the other thing, one of the big costs that will be in this, if it cannot be handled otherwise, is the removal of all the trees, because tree removal is very expensive. It can be very expensive. So I don't know if the town has a contract with a tree company that they could latch this onto, or that's something to think about. If there's a local tree company that would like to do this as a gift to the town. That's another thing too.
Did remove tree, does this include that big one right on the front?
It does not.
Okay.
So should we add that in?
I think someone's going to be taking that down
Okay.
before this is built, because that thing's
Which one was that now, Rich? Are you talking about?
right,
It's
right
a
at the,
sugar maple, yeah, it's
right on the front of the
door.
walkway there.
It's
It's,
a town tree, so
yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
comes under the town anyway.
it's,
Yeah, the tree removal budget, there's a tree removal
Yes.
budget.
yeah,
They'll take care of that,
yeah.
But as opposed to putting this out to bid as part of a project cost, whether or not it makes sense to do it as part of the DPW contract work or something like that.
so the site clearing, that would be a huge savings on the project. The town could handle that. And also too, in terms of site preparation, this is again a very conservative, I'm assuming erosion control around the entire site, because you're gonna be excavating in there and you don't want soil getting out into the street. Security fencing also around the entire site, just so you don't want people walking in and out. So the town may have opinions about that, how that gets handled. I'll just go down this. The earthwork here, I'm assuming that we'll be cutting for the walkways, and the cut material can be used to actually grade up the pavilion. I'm hoping that can happen, so that would be a good thing. And as you'll see here, the pavement is bituminous at the moment. That's what I've figured in for that. The trees are just installation prices. Benches are, again, like roughly the going price of a bench. It might be a little less, could be a little more. And then go ahead.
Can we just back up to the paving?
Sure.
Could you do a guesstimate of what the length is? 'Cause you said you had included the walkway along School Street and the walkway along Main Street. Could you give a guesstimate of what that, I guess, feet is, the unit that you're using that's included in this amount?
Yes. Yes, it is, and I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay, because that would be good to know.
It's 5 feet wide, you just divide
It's
it by
linear
5,
feet.
right? Or is this a linear foot or a square foot?
It's a square foot, so the linear footage is, I don't know, it's,
Divided by 5,
yeah,
probably.
12.
Right, but I guess what I'm getting at is what is the length of the sidewalks, existing sidewalks? And so that in terms of, figuring, the cost of the project without doing that and with doing that, basically, that's what I was
Yeah.
getting to.
Okay, so because they're part of their town property.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
okay.
I
So
mean-
we could pull that out. I could pull that out as a separate item.
yeah, that would be good, a
Okay.
separate line item,
Mhm.
or within that section, that'd
Yep.
be good.
And so I'm assuming, and this also includes the sidewalk leading up to the town hall, which would be, is that also,
I mean, if you could separate that too. I
Okay.
mean,
okay, that makes sense. Okay, let's see. So the pavilion, I looked at two different models of this, and I attached some information for you, so you can just see kind of roughly what's out there. One of the prices that I got was on the one that's made by Natural Structures, and a lot of these are made out of steel, so they're very strong. And they were less expensive, obviously, than the cedar, which is on the final 2 pages. Those are lovely, lovely pavilions. I've spec'd them before, and they're on the pricier side. So between the two, it averaged out to about $40 a square foot. If we're talking about a 25 by 25 roughly square foot, a 25 by 25 measuring building. So, again, that would be that's something that could be built locally. It would be a huge savings for the project.
And in regards to the sort of the project design or the construction design, whatever that's referred to, is that part of this, or we would?
No, that is not in here, and I should mention that too, and I did not include surveying in here, so if we do want to get, I would like to have the site surveyed if we're going to continue, just to have detailed
Okay.
measurements and, some spot grades so that we can really have accurate information out there. It's best to do that. You may want to do some soil testing, just to see.
Is a
borings.
construction design, if that's the term to use, is that a percentage of the project typically, or is that, they're very dependent on?
Not typically a percentage of the project in
Okay.
landscape architecture, so
Okay.
I would have to give you a separate price on
All
that,
right.
but I can come up with something if you want.
Yeah,
me
I'm
to
just thinking
include
as we
that.
go down the line, when we sort of try to get funding for this, we'll need to make sure we have all possible costs in there.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe I missed it, but did you have a recommendation for one of these?
I don't,
Oh,
no. I just wanted to give you an idea of what was out there on the market, and these are, again, off-the-shelf items, and this, if a building can be off the shelf, but they're items that are
Okay.
they're stock items, so.
Well, some of
They
these
can-
have railings around, we don't want that though, right? We don't open.
They do, and, I know there was some interest in that from some of the people that attended the sessions, but I personally think it would be great to have an open shelter, but again, it's really, up to the community.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my thought is that as part of the construction project, we include, design fees for perhaps a local architect to come up with, the design for this. So it would be sort of
I think that's good. That would be a good
personally,
thing to do.
homemade, so to speak, or whatever.
I think that would be a really good thing to do.
And I thought we had mentioned that some sides can be taken out, I mean, for.
Yep, that could be a possibility too, so it's
obviously more
removable.
expensive, but incredibly versatile. And
Or just have like that open look too.
you let so fewer spindles.
Some, not obviously that
Yeah.
big, but that whole, it's just columns.
Right, yeah.
Which-
The other item that's not in here is lighting, electrical.
Right.
So
Right.
that-
So if it was sort of an open look, what would one do for sort of seating for whoever's, performing, what have you, is that, I guess that's just movable seating or
Bring your own.
bring your own?
You mean on the lawn or for like band members?
No, for band members, or,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's, space, and I guess the question is, where can you store chairs, right?
well, I guess, what does the town use for Memorial Day? Is that, there's benches out there, is there,
Old folding chairs, I think, are.
they're down,
Yeah, those heavy wooden chairs that have been in the town hall since
yeah, so they're,
I've been
yeah,
a kid.
so,
Yes, I
They'll
think that would
function.
be good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing about the structure. I think the acoustics are going to be important in it, so if it does get designed locally, that would be one thing to consider, is just to be sure that it has good sound. So,
which, I mean, speakers would be part of that also, presumably.
yeah, I suppose, yep. There aren't, no, there's nothing out there now, obviously. Yeah.
Something built into the,
Mm-hmm.
That's great that these numbers are all divided into categories, Martha. I think that's,
Oh,
you can
the
rea-
phases.
you can really
yeah.
see what, areas that are, I don't want to say, there, I guess the way to put it is, are there volunteer opportunities or, donation possibilities on some of these items? In your experience for doing landscape projects, like if people want to donate a tree, or if someone wants to donate
Trees,
something,
benches,
yeah,
the bandstand.
yeah.
It would be a great donor opportunity. If there's
Yeah.
someone in town who wants to have a memorial, to their family, or,
Pavers, people that are enamored,
Yeah.
Swedes are part, all the pavers are engraved, I mean,
it's
you know,
true,
yeah,
yep.
gift of so-and-so.
I'm not wild about those, but,
Yeah.
yeah, so all those kinds of things, I think,
Mhm.
could help do this. I'm working on a project right now in Saratoga, and they're getting all the concrete donated by a local company. I don't know if they're in the valley, if there's someone who would be interested in doing that, but it's a big price. And if you wanted to go with concrete, or even the asphalt,
Right.
it could possibly get donated.
I know for buildings that go out to public bid, it's so tightly controlled in terms of code requirements and liability and insurance and contractors, the opportunities to volunteer or to donate time are constricted, but I don't know about parks, for instance, or whether that same, it's a little more,
Yeah,
the ability for people to donate their time or their talent to a public project. Is it,
I think you can divide it any way you want.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if it's over a certain amount of money, it would have to be publicly bid because it's municipal, but you can bid whatever parts of it you want.
right,
If part of it's being donated by someone, the building and, the architecture fees in the building and the whole thing gets donated by someone, that just doesn't get included in the price of the bid package.
right.
So, and do you think that's a possibility, that there would be people out there who would be interested?
I kind of hope to think that there would be, I mean, we have a lot of talented people in Hatfield who do all the things on this list.
Yeah.
Whether or not they would actually want to donate sometime or have the ability to, I don't know,
Mm-hmm, yep.
but,
So, you're welcome to think about this some more. We don't have to decide on the final materials in this stage, and, maybe what we should do is if you feel comfortable with this concept as it is, I'll go back and do some more illustrative drawings, so you can see from a cross-section point of view what it will look like, and then also just something that I think that will help people visualize it in 3 dimensions. I think people have a hard time reading plans, and that might generate more interest too from the public in supporting it. And then put all that together for you, and then you'll be on your way. And I can amend the budget to include those items, Rich, that you had mentioned.
yeah, and just in terms of the design fees, is that, I think that was part of a proposal that whoever would do the final design, they're on board for the rest of the project and sort of doing some coordinating? Is that how it would typically work?
It's ideal,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
whatever fee,
So construction services,
I
yeah.
mean, just as we talk now, it's like all these different pieces, and it
Yes.
seems like someone needs to be coordinating that.
Yes, that's absolutely true, yeah. Yeah, and then there would need to be someone in the town at that point who would be overseeing it from the town's point of view, kind of the owner's representative.
Yep.
So whomever that would be. Had you thought about pricing on this at all, like way back when you?
Well, we originally threw out 150,000
Oh,
without really,
Having
just
any
a
idea?
rough guess.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. So
So, yeah, this actually is,
it's not shocking.
no,
Okay, good. That never happens. Okay, good. So, does that sound like a good plan? I'll go back and revise the budget and get some other illustrative drawings done
do
for
we,
you.
do we want to think about this and meet in January and then communicate back with Martha any other tweaks we may have, or do we just send her on her way?
I can also come back in January if you want to talk to me some more about it, if you want to think
I
about it
think
over
that
the
design,
holidays.
you know, if we decide that we go the next step on the design portion, which you would consider to be design development, would,
Mhm.
so we'd get to, we have more specifics about the types of trees,
Yep,
you know, how they're going to mature, maybe how they would look. For instance, the ones against the building, I don't have a good picture in my mind as to how that looks and how those trees look when they're mature, and the effect of all those plantings against the building.
mhm.
But yeah, things like that to flush out, you know, all the details here so that we really know. So design development is a design phase where we can make changes to
Yes,
look at, right.
yeah.
So, I wasn't sure, so should Martha come up with the cross-section design and all that based on our thinking this is okay, or do we need to,
Well, we wanted, as part of your work, were you going to do some sort of a three-dimensional representation? Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're comfortable with this approach, and again, this is a concept, so we're not trying to, people will say, they'll look at the bird's eye and they'll say, well, what is that shrub there? Like, what are the berries on the shrub? And we're not at that point yet. It's the idea of what this is gonna look like.
okay, so I mean, in terms of your time, you come back, we like what we have to this point, you come back with sort of a cross-section design and all that,
And a three-dimensional,
and at that point, you've pretty much,
that's the first
Fulfilled.
phase, yeah.
right, and so,
And I'll compile everything into a design
Right.
report for you too, so you have everything in one place.
so once we reach that point, then any other changes happen during the construction design?
Right.
Okay, just want to make that clear.
Yeah, and there'll be plenty of opportunity to, things during the, when you're developing construction documents, things change a lot.
Okay.
Almost up to the last minute, and then sometimes after the last minute, they change.
I have a question also about the trees alongside the town hall. Were those meant to be medium size?
Yes,
Right,
yeah.
okay. And you don't have do you have anything in mind, any particular type? I'm just trying to envision it too. Because, I think here you on the diagram, you have open canopy, but I thought you said maybe that was based on an earlier discussion about sort of the lacy thing, like red bud or something like that.
Yeah,
But then, now you're saying columnar, slim, so I'm just.
well, there are columnar trees that are not really, really dense,
Uh-huh.
so we would have to work on that. We'll work on that. And if people don't feel like that's the good approach, again, we can modify that. That's not a problem at all.
Like Lombardy poplar or something, no.
No, probably not Lombardy poplars.
Or that kind of a look, those are more like, yeah, whatever. Okay, and, well, the other thing I was thinking, there is a large cost in the plantings. And
Yep.
so, obviously, spacing in the windows, that would be, give more, flow. I'm wondering if we could go with 3 instead of 5.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's possible.
so if there was sort of you know, going above the window canopy kind of thing. Maybe that could be spaced in between the three center. or
Mhm,
something. And
yep.
then maybe some low blooming, you know, spring blooming things by the stairway and in the corners, sort of brightening it up a little and, you know, instead of full trees there.
Yeah, so
something like
let me do the bird's eye drawing, which will give you a three-dimensional view of this, and then, you know, as I develop that, it'll probably give me a better sense of what I think looks well there. And I can also do a cross-section too that'll show that facade and see how that will look. And then we can play around with that, but that's, yeah, certainly I'm open to any changes there.
I like the idea of some evergreens, I know, you know, they're so bird-friendly for winter,
Yeah.
you know, for nesting and protection, so I like that. But they can, it seems like they're also kind of high maintenance as far as pruning and they can tend to look, I mean, as far as that, you know, the denser row between the parking area. And I do tend to agree with, I mean, that it would be nice to be able to see that new playground area, have some visibility.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was wondering about the height, I mean, like a hemlock hedge, it's, you know, like similar to in front of the Emily Dickinson house, it's sort of, it's very feathery and nice, doesn't look stiff like yew bushes, or, I know is there something called the Hatfield yew? I did
I've
hear
never
that.
heard of that. No.
A Hatfield yew? Yeah, but are they quite similar to other yew bushes? I mean, I sort of.
Well, they kind of grow kind of wild. I think they're more of a woody, you know,
Spreading,
yeah,
like juniper almost, a low juniper.
kind of like a juniper, yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe a Hatfield yew could work in some ways, maybe alongside the plaque or something. But I was thinking in the back, they can look very stiff and depending on the pruning, and they can get sparse at the ground level.
Some do, yeah.
Yeah.
It depends on the species that's selected. And some, you know, a lot of evergreens really don't need pruning. I mean, they grow, you know, beautifully with enough light, which they'll get plenty of light here. They'll get enough light and.
Big thing with that whole border hedge along the parking lot is, you know, they all look beautiful till they're like 15 years old, and then they start growing. And if they're not maintained, they start looking unruly.
So you're thinking of like spruces, or what trees are you thinking?
Not even a spruce. Spruce is gonna grow, and eventually, I mean, you're not really supposed to be trimming spruces, you know?
Yeah, I'm not
And
suggesting.
even
that these-
hemlocks are high maintenance to keep them feathery.
Right.
If you're gonna shear them, you're gonna have a box, you know? To keep them feathery, it's hand pruning to get in, to get the new follicles to come out.
So I think I'm not conveying this idea well, because I'm not talking about a hedge here. That's
No,
not,
you're talking about a mass planting.
well, I shouldn't have used that
of
word
evergreens,
mass.
you said.
I'm talking about a planting of evergreens, but not, you know, so densely placed together that it looks like a screen. This is going to be more an arrangement of evergreen trees that will provide some kind of a barrier between the car headlights that are coming into the park at night.
If you plant a spruce, you gotta give that 20 feet around
Okay,
for future,
sure.
right?
Okay, so we'll do it more sparsely. We'll
And
sparsely
that's what I'm
plant
saying,
it.
but then the spruce gets 40 feet high, and you start losing the bottom branches, because things do start growing together. I mean, I ran into it when I did a design once and it screwed up, but maybe some low-growing rhodies. to
Not a good
incorporate.
choice there, not a
Oh.
good choice there.
No,
No.
Rhododendron, you're saying?
yeah,
Yeah.
something that's,
Some can be beautiful, with the blossoms, I mean, they can be really beautiful. But maybe, you had said multi-species, you were seeing several different species
Yeah,
in this.
yeah.
Maybe there could be a mix. I think rhododendron with the green in the winter, I mean, they're common around here, but they can be just gorgeous. And if you it would lighten it a bit. And again, a mix of evergreens, not too dense. But again, I would say if you're thinking full trees, well then I do feel like every evergreen I see around, they get huge trunks, tall trunks with
So you're
no
thinking of like
branches.
white pines, probably, a lot of pines do that. Balsams,
I have a
balsam
whole
firs,
edge of white
Douglas
pine
fir.
on my property, they're not on mine, but huge branches come down.
Well, they do limb because they don't get enough light. I wouldn't use
Right.
white pines here.
Yeah, no, I didn't
So,
think
I mean,
you
the
would.
selection of trees has to be really, you know what, I think we should not talk about this anymore because I think
Right.
this is a detail that we're gonna work out in the next phase.
Yeah.
And, So let's do that. And I'll, when I draw this again, I'll try to do it in a way that I think, I'll try to respond to some of your concerns about these.
Maybe
And-
if you
Again,
have,
I just couldn't tell the height. I couldn't tell sort of what eventually sort of like, if there would be a maximum height it would go to,
Mm-hmm.
if you were picturing that. It's like, I'm trying to-
you know,
I would
photographs
think
might
not
be
too
a
high.
nice idea, Martha, if you have any photographs about the type of thing you're imagining or whatever.
The type of tree.
Because that's, not necessarily the type of tree, but the type of look.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because I'm having a tough time with that part of the project, of the design. The rest of it I can imagine, but that, I guess
Because it just feels
I'm
too
imagining what
dense.
Jonathan's imagining. Mature trees where it's kind of messy underneath and the bottom branches are dying out, and I'm not, you know, I'm just looking, I'm thinking down the road. But
Okay.
I don't want to have that vision,
I
you
accept.
know, so.
Okay, all right, well, let me work on that part of it a little bit, and I'll
Yeah.
try to,
It'd be different if you had woodlot behind it, you know, because it all blend in, but
Right.
yeah.
you got a separation.
I think some of the thoughts, were think back to some of our other meetings, was just sort of breaking up that look into the parking lot. I mean, I don't think, you know, the headlights, whatever, that's really probably not going to be an issue as much as just sort of breaking up that look
Yeah,
and having that separation.
yeah,
So maybe that is a lesser dense look than, you know. than,
okay, yep.
And how
Yeah, I
about-
mean, I think the bandstand does need a backdrop behind it,
Yeah.
because if you don't have anything back there, you're just gonna see the sea of asphalt behind it, it's
Right.
going to feel really inhospitable.
Right.
So maybe it isn't arranged the way it is, maybe it's, the trees are more filling that green space behind it, there's more separation between them,
Okay.
but I think that you definitely need a backdrop to it,
I agree.
so.
Okay.
Anybody else? Anything?
Great job.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Looks
Thanks,
good.
thanks,
Looks
Martha.
really good.
Good, I'm glad that, yeah, I think it's gonna be really nice. So we'll work on the planting part of it.
Yeah, no, these details, yeah. Did anybody have any pictures in mind of benches? Of more like the curvy back kind, or?
There's some
I mean,
really
are
nice
there-
benches out there,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping that we can stray from the town vocabulary, which is,
Because that's
Traditional.
sort of-
I think it's concrete and tracks, isn't it? Isn't
Oh,
it?
okay.
Like
Yeah.
plastic?
I'm
Yeah.
sure we
Yeah,
can
the
strike
tracks,
from that, yeah.
So, you know, given the tradition here, which is a very Victorian-looking building, there's some beautiful Victorian benches that are out there that I would probably recommend for this.
Cast iron with,
Yeah, cast iron with, you know, they use ipe wood, which is a really, really rot-resistant, weathers beautifully wood. That would be beautiful here, so.
do you need help on the 3D with the architectural portion of the gazebo? Is there anything I can, like I have a SketchUp program that I could,
If you
I
have an
could send it
idea,
to you, then you could, if it's possible to insert it.
if you have an idea of what you would be thinking, I would love to include that, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, then we'll talk then about that.
sounds good.
Okay.
That's perfect.
What are we considering for a date?
I don't know, what is your time frame, Martha?
Your meeting in January?
Yes, we would typically meet, well,
Yeah.
yeah.
We would. And I can't remember, it's because our meeting should have been on January the 1st, but that's obviously New Year's Day, so it's the week after that.
So the 9th, January 9th.
I've got it written down here somewhere amidst this chaos.
Calendar.
I don't know where I put this one.
Actually got my 2015 calendar. Here's your January.
Well, okay. So, yeah, I was looking at the 8th here, because Thursday is first is New Year's Day.
Does that work for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep. And is it also a Thursday?
That is a Thursday.
What I
Okay.
wrote down. Yeah, it is Thursday.
It would probably be at 6 for Martha again, and
Okay.
Yeah. That works okay for you?
Yeah, so I'll do my sketches and we'll take a look at those and then we can finish it up. That
The
sounds
8th
good.
is a Wednesday.
2015, or are you in 14, Ron?
You're right.
Going backwards.
Are we meeting at 5:30? Would we meet earlier? To do other business, or would we
think we
wait till
should-
afterwards to do other business?
I think we should meet at 5:30, actually, because
Right.
otherwise we'll never get to the other stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Martha will
And
be at
then
6.
if you come at 6,
Yeah.
Okay.
Martha, and
Yep.
we'll meet half an hour before.
Sounds perfect.
Okay.
Could I venture one more question or suggestion, or without, at the risk of sounding like I'm staying on this, there's too much detail?
okay.
Nothing about trees. You know, more, almost, I just thought about a slightly structural screen thing for this back, you know, like there's a, like an arbor of sorts along, but not, rather than one that you would really walk, one, it would be sort of like a back and a root and a top arbor structure. Something that could go, or even built up, I don't know, is there a split rail fence partway along between the parking
I
area?
don't
Or
think
just at the
so.
park? I think
At
it's
the
split
park.
rail At the park,
Hmm.
right. I don't know if, again, I mean, if you can, well, the split rail obviously is more rustic in a way than
Mm.
the tone of things here.
Yeah, I mean, there was a beautiful fence around the property
Yeah.
originally, which would be beautiful to include in this, but it's, would
Very,
be
yeah.
expensive, but,
Well, I guess I was thinking more, something that could actually then accommodate, a vine, like a wisteria vine or something. Obviously, that would just take years to fill in.
maybe not. Wisteria is pretty,
It gets pretty vigorous.
yeah, it does.
Really?
Talk about
I
pruning.
don't know, I just said, well, yeah, I know, I went to Sarah Lawrence College, and they have a very long walkway of, covered, all covered with wisteria, and bees can be a problem
Yeah.
with that. But it is beautiful, and there's stone-based pillars for supports along that one, but I don't know, again, maybe some wooden structural, some structure, and then, I don't know, some kind of vine growth of, and maybe just, again, partial or something to have, a bit of that sort of lacy feeling that you talk about, a little more, I don't know, and something with blooms, again, that just always seems so striking, so
Mhm.
pretty. I certainly, I don't know, I would donate whatever time I could, but, or try to help get a group of, gardening friends together. I would like to do that, just for that sake. But I don't know, that was just an idea, but I know that's a pretty big change. I mean, that would be a real design element again, but I just thought I would throw it out. I think, and if there maybe, I don't know if it's worth it to put any benches back there, because again, you're near cars. Maybe that's not the place to invest in seating, but as far as kind of a pretty backdrop,
Mhm.
a possibility.
We'll think about it.
Okay, thank you all.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before we depart, we have a quorum, so I would like to get rid of these minutes, okay? Which I handed out, a copy, which I've modified from last time. Thanks very much, Martha. Ron, thank you. I'd just like to read these minutes so we can read them into posterity. Okay, and this was, these are the minutes that I have modified from last time, and these were the ones for September 25th meeting. I still have the ones of subsequent meeting to write up. So I'm just going to read these minutes of the Hatfield Open Space Committee, 9/25/14. Call to order at 5:35. I was here, Rich, Mark, and Steve Tolumsis. We read the minutes for August, which were unanimously approved. Then, the individual items here. Open Space and Recreation Plan 2014. BOS showed little inclination to discuss further its letter of review for the plan. Pressing the matter further, the committee thought would probably not be productive at this point. The chair expected to send DCS the final draft, complete with relevant letters of review within the week. Incidentally, Jamie knows Melissa Crine and said that she was going to contact her and see where our document is. Okay. Pioneer Valley Compact for Conservation. Mr. Cox observed that we have $1,500 available via the compact. PVPC has contacted the chair as to how we wish to use the money. Having had some success establishing conservation land west of I-91, the committee thought we should examine again working to establish conservation lands east of I-91. We might wish to contact Ann Capper and Pete Westover for help with this. Center School building and land. Final decision on the parcel will be made at special town meeting called for October 21. Center School Advisory Committee concluded that the likely end product of RFPs from developers would be 8 units in the existing building and possibly an additional 40 units in a new development on 3.5 acres of the parcel, leaving the remaining 2.5 acres as conserved open space next to the Connecticut River. Following some discussion, a motion was proposed and seconded that the town should retain ownership of 1/2 Center School parcel that borders the Connecticut River. Motion passed 4-0. Trustees Park. Mr. Abbott said Ms. Lyons has a clear design concept, although on the basis of discussions with stakeholders, she will make some more revisions. Final meeting with her, the trustees and members of OSC remain to be scheduled. At that meeting, Ms. Lyon will also give cost estimates for implementation of the revised version of concept number 1. Mr. Cox thought it unlikely that we could meet the December 1st deadline to apply for CPA money for the park's construction. Others thought it might be possible, however, to make a preliminary proposal by the deadline to CPC and then to fill in the necessary details later. No decision was made on the matter. We adjourned at 7:10, and I was the scribe. So I tried to carry out the changes you asked me to do, and if there are others, let me know.
I move to accept the minutes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All those opposed?
Good.
Thank you.
All right.
Do I have time for a question here?
Yes.
Regarding the, what do they call it, a capital plan?
Yes.
I saw your email, so do we know that the capital planning committee knows that we have a figure to put in that?
Yes, I assume so, because the thing is, that's why I sent out that trail of emails, because
Or was that, because Mark had forwarded the one he got, and was that after
yes.
you had sent yours? So,
I guess, was it conveyed to Jeff Boyle that we were going to be present? I guess that's,
well,
Yes, that's
mean,
what.
okay.
yeah, I mean, because it seemed like you had sent an email that had a figure, but yet later on, he sent another mail saying, are you going to put in a figure?
Well, he somehow had, I think, had spaced what I had said earlier.
Right. But does he now know, I guess the question is, does he now know that we have an
I
amount?
assume I can double check it, but I
Right.
have to go back and look at the trail, but I'm pretty sure
Because
that
I'm wondering
yeah.
if it actually has to be on a form or something before it actually gets into there.
no one said anything about a form to me,
Okay.
and I talked.
I guess, that-
Yeah.
did any of us respond specifically to Jeff's email?
Yes, I think I did.
Okay.
But I'll
Right.
have to check that, double check.
So I will go next Tuesday, and I have the time somewhere,
All right.
but I
and
didn't want to go if it was like,
Right, and
Right.
I've actually changed an appointment so I can go too.
okay,
So I thought both of us could go, and meanwhile, I'll check out to make sure that
Good.
it's there. All right.
Great.
Okay, there's probably some other things, but it's getting late. So, I think that's it.
Does everybody feel about the screen, the evergreens? What do you,
I'm concerned about it.
like, yeah, I think as people talked about it, I can see there's issues. It certainly has the height of them was more than I was, because those things get quite high.
Mhm.
I mean, the maintenance, that I'm not sure about that piece. I mean, I think that's true of probably anything.
I
I
think
think it's the only, the only thing that really bothers me here is that that western side, that's what we're talking about, right? The plantings along that.
Yeah, it needs to be clarified as to kind of what it's really going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think there should be some sort of barrier, or whatever you want to call it, some filter.
Backdrop, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, to the thickness of that, or what have you.
Well, I
the
think
types of planting.
it's just very difficult, given the background. I mean, I think I sympathize with your position, Mark. You know, you want to have also some connection with the other, with the part beyond that, with the basketball court,
Right,
whatever's
right,
there.
yeah.
But it's very difficult. It seems to me, I mean, just looking at this as an amateur, this seems a difficult kind of space to deal with, to serve all the purposes we want it
Right.
to
Right.
serve.
Right, yeah, yeah.
So I'm a little worried about that.
Well, maybe Martha can show us some more visuals as to what it really,
Right.
what she has in mind.
Yeah, I think
So,
so. Motion to adjourn, or does anyone?
So
have-
moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, folks. It's a long